I'm Paul Lamont. I worked for Rabobank in New Zealand. For 10 years I lent money directly to farmers, and then for 10 years after that I managed a staff of 15 managers who lent the money to the farmers. I was the manager after that, based in Hamilton in the Waikato, and then in 2015 I had a project to go to Istanbul in Turkey to look at the possibility of Rabobank lending money to farmers in Turkey. That is my background. The thing that helps farmers most in banking in New Zealand are that there are 5 banks competing strongly for their business. So the farmers have choice, and the banks are, if they want to participate in the market, they have to be fair both in price and in the conditions that they impose upon the farmers, because if they're not fair, then there are 4 other banks that would offer a loan to the farmer anyway. So I think that is why the New Zealand banking situation is so favourable to dairy farmers compared to some other countries. The banks in New Zealand are very accommodating to dairy farmers for one-off situations like droughts, like a lower payout situation, and are very tolerant and will lend them more money to get through a situation that impacts their cash flow, even if it puts the farmer outside the normal security ratios, because the banks understand that the farmer cannot help climatic conditions or lower payouts. And so generally the farmer will get extra money to help their cash flow through a tight situation, but of course the bank can only do this for a certain amount of time, and they also know the trend, so that if one farmer has a lot of problems time after time again, then the bank may not be so tolerant. But if an area has a drought and all the farmers are affected, then the bank sees, well, the farmer can't help that, and we will just give them a larger credit facility to help them through those times. So generally the maximum the bank will start out lending is to 60%. Of course the farmer has to want to borrow the money. So if he is very keen and wants to borrow to 60% of the security, and the bank can confidently cash flow that there will be a surplus when they borrow 60%, then generally the banks are happy to do it. But of course, if the farmer has a drought in the first year, or it has a lower payout than expected in the first year, then sometimes it can creep, and the bank will still accept 63, 64, 65% lending compared to equity. But generally the starting point is 60%. But they always like to see, when they lend the money, a surplus over and above all the financing costs, farm working costs, and the farmer's own personal costs at the start. And that may be very small, but they still like to see a surplus at the start. They use status quo prices for both what they expect the long-term price of milk to be and what they expect the long-term interest rates to be. And they use these prices to assess whether they will take on a new lending farmer. New Zealand farmers are very encouraging for young people to come through the system, and they can see that it is in their own interest in the end, because when they want to retire, they want someone to buy the farm. So they are very encouraging for new people coming into the industry, and the early stepping stones might be salaried positions, but very quickly at a very young age, the young people are encouraged to get into share milking situations or equity partnership situations where they own a percentage of the whole business. And farmers can be very accommodating to help people do this, to the extent that some will guarantee their loans even if they're not family. It's very common with family members, a father to guarantee a son or an uncle to guarantee a nephew, but even people that are not related, in order to keep those people working for them because they are a good farm worker, they will often guarantee their first loan for them until they build up their own equity to become able to borrow from the bank without a guarantee. especially in New Zealand, there has been a lot of development. And so when you change from a sheep and beef farm to a dairy farm, of course, you have to build a big dairy shed, 1 million New Zealand dollars, 700,000 US dollars, and, just to change it. And also you have to buy the land, and these are big capital items. So that is why the dairy debt has increased. I would also have to say, this is my personal opinion, not Rabobank's opinion, that because we've been through a period of lower interest rates over the last few years, then some of that has become capitalised in land values. Land values have increased, in my opinion, a little bit because interest rates are lower, so therefore farmers can afford to borrow more against them. That is a very difficult question, but the All Blacks would win 100 times out of 100, in my opinion.